Hello, you're listening to the IoT Weekly podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode number 20 of the IoT Weekly podcast, brought to you by Gearforge Software. My name is Cliff, and I'm telling you right now, have a very exciting show today with Dr. Alex Smith, a data scientist with Field Nation. Besides myself, I'm joined by my co-hosts Matthew and Zeineb. Matthew, what you been up to?
Oh boy, I've been wrangling Vue.js, Python, and bears.
And I'm sorry, how are you doing, Matthew? I was so daggone exciting about Field Nation, I didn't even ask how you doing today.
I am doing all right. How are you?
Spot on. Just spot on.
Fantastic.
Zeineb, how about you? How you doing and what you been up to?
I mean, aside from absolutely no sleep for the last week, because it's the college student life, I got to play around with the kids from Feria Labs.
Yeah.
Oh, they're so much fun. So that you have the scoreboard, and I just started writing like some outdated memes and jokes, and it was really nice to show the coworkers, and they got a laugh out of it. So
great. How far along did you get with the tutorials?
So I just finished. When you're able to like kind of plug in the sounds and the music and all that, it's kind of where I got to.
Okay.
So there's me blasting Neon Cat out in the office.
Oh, funny.
It is lovely. It is really fun, and I don't have any background still, really.
Because you've never done like programming before, right?
I mean, I did, so I managed to catch up with
Okay.
the language pretty fast, but I've never done any kind of Python stuff ever.
Nice. There you go, Matthew.
Love the Python.
I know.
You guys can always make me try new things. I'm so down for it. This stuff is so fun.
That's awesome.
That is
How
great.
how about you, Mr. Cliff? What have you been up to?
So yeah, I was playing. We got a new prototyping module from Helium. It's a gateway. You guys know how much I love connectivity. I've got it sitting on my desk. It's blinking a couple really cool looking LEDs, and we're firing things up into the cloud. And we've got MQTT publishing right now for this. Besides that, I played a lot with Microsoft machine learning platform this last weekend. And that's pretty much been it. Lots of work.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Lots of work.
Oh boy.
Yes. So I'm going to move on to the feedback piece here. We've gotten some really great feedback on Twitter, guys. Zeineb's going to hit on one of them here shortly. We had a gentleman reach out to us from Germany that we've replied back to. So we really appreciate the feedback we're getting, along with all the connections. Some of these folks that we're getting ready to come up on some new interviews are straight up from the podcast. So thank you. If you do have feedback or you have a soup recipe for Matthew, are you still looking for soup recipes?
I'm always looking for soup recipes. You
Okay.
guys, soup, absolutely, anytime.
There
I'm
you go.
hoping you finally switch out to pasta because I can at least help with that.
I do love pasta.
I
It
did
is
put it on my
not as-
resume once.
Pasta?
Yes, that I
Oh,
can
see,
make
that's
10 varieties of tomato paste. That stuff.
That is a great skill to have.
I know.
We did talk about that at your interview. I remember pasta.
Yeah.
Wait, was it on your resume for us?
No. But I did have to explain how to mix up spices for pasta, and
You know my favorite interview question, right, Matthew?
What is that?
Can you describe something in 5
Oh.
minutes that you do really well, or
Yeah,
you know
something
really well?
complicated in 5 minutes that you know how to
Yes.
do really well. Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Absolutely.
it was either pasta or black holes, and I chose pasta.
Well, pasta seems more relatable to me than
Well, I
Yeah.
think so.
yeah.
Well, and if you've got a soup recipe or a pasta recipe, apparently for Zeineb, go ahead and shoot it over to us at podcast@gearforgesoftware.com or hit us up on Twitter. We're there all the time at Gearforge IoT. That's Gearforge IoT.
Mhm.
Zeineb, what do we got in the news today?
Oh, we had I hope I'm saying the name right. We had Adil Ahmed reach out to us again. Wonderful guy. We love to connect with him on Twitter. And he is going to be in Minibar this weekend. So we thought we might just do a shout out because he's doing a session about side projects and all the tools and all the steps you can think of and some inspirational things. So he's going to be there tomorrow. His session, I believe, might be around, I think it's around 11 to 12, if I'm not wrong. So it's 11:15 to 12:05. So, you know,
Well,
check
and
it out if you
it's
want.
going to be a blizzard in Minnesota, so you might as well go to Minimar.
Yeah. I mean, what else would you do?
Absolutely, if you can get there.
Yes, if you can get there.
If you can get there.
Yep.
Might not get home, but
Yeah.
yeah. And if you want to check out session number 524, so
Mhm.
if you go to the ministar.org sessions /524, and that is our friend Adil. So
Yep. And the link is in the show notes, obviously.
fantastic. All right, well, it's time for a word from our sponsor, which is the IoT Fuse Conference. So the IoT Fuse Conference 2018 aims to unite accomplished doers, makers, and hackers with the brightest executives, entrepreneurs, and innovators. Sounds like a pretty great group.
Mm-hmm.
Now in its fourth year, it brings together a robust community of IoT practitioners, developers, and makers who strive to build a deeper understanding of where the Internet of Things is today, where it's headed in the future, and how IoT-associated technologies and use cases can improve the physical world in which we live. You can learn more at iotfuse.com. And just would like to say thank you for sponsoring this show. And if you're in the Minneapolis area, we would love to see you at IoT Fuse. We will be there. And Cliff and I are going to be presenting a workshop. Cliff, do you want to tell the listeners a little bit about our workshop?
Well, if you're interested in machine learning, but you're not a data scientist like Dr. Alex Smith, and you just want to dabble and leverage it for some basics, you're more than welcome to come to our shop. And it's all about practical IoT machine learning. This is not for your data scientists. So this is more so for your kind of your everyday individual that's interested in some information type stuff. Please come to it. We're going to cover a few different areas of some data sets, just some basics around the actual model, and do a little bit of a demo leveraging Amazon and possibly Microsoft. We're still deciding on that.
Yeah, and basically ask yourself, do you have data?
Yeah.
Especially, we're sort of tuning this to sensor data, but it could be really any kind. You could apply this across all sorts of disciplines. We'll show how you can use, without any data science background, just the basics, how you can use some of the cloud accessible tools and technologies that will help you make get some good use out of that data and in real time, right, Cliff?
100%.
Wait, so can someone like me do it?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes, 100%. You
Yep.
can do it.
Now, I'm going to tell you
awesome.
now, like what Dr. Alex Smith is going to be talking about. He is like, it's just amazing. I'm going to tell you that. It's just absolutely amazing the stuff they're doing.
Data science is a deep, it's a science. It's
Yes.
a very deep discipline. What we're interested in is maybe you're a small company, or maybe you're a company that does not have or cannot afford a data science team, right? Which is a lot of companies, but you do have a lot of data. Well, you don't need a data science team to start making some use with machine learning out of that data, right? So that's we're going to try to show how you can use these technologies and get some value out of that. All right. Well, next we're going to cut to an interview with Dr. Alex Smith to talk about his work in data science at Field Nation. Data science and machine learning are a huge part of the IoT revolution, and we're very excited and grateful to have Alex as a guest on our podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very exciting show where we get to interview Dr. Alex Smith, data scientist from Field Nation. Hi, Alex. Welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, we're so happy to have you here. How are you today?
I'm doing good. Doing
good. We for our listeners out there, we have we're all waiting on pins and needles to find out if we're going to get another 2 feet of snow, or if it's all going to be rain here in Minnesota. So I think most of us are ready for winter to be over.
Indeed.
All right. Well, Alex, thanks so much for joining us today. Let's start out, if you could share how you got started in data science.
Sure. Well, my background is in physics, so I got my PhD back in 1995, and then I spent about 17 years doing research in the field of high energy physics, experimental. So there I was studying the building blocks of matter, neutrinos, and bottom and charm quarks. So a big part of that is building the physical experiments, the software, and also doing analysis of the data. So, you know, I like to think of experimental high energy physics as the, you know, data science before it was cool. That's what I would say.
I like that.
But, you know, the idea is that the domain of quantum mechanics, where things are very small, the reality is really stochastic in nature. So everything is described as sort of a random distribution. So those tools and techniques are what, you know, were later used in data, or currently being used in data science. And so it, you know, provided actually good background. So I made a career change back in 2014 and started here at Field Nation about a year and a half ago.
And I'm just curious, Alex. So I think that's really interesting that the tools and techniques in high energy physics, there was so much overlap that you could also apply those in data science. What was it that made you want to make the switch?
Well, you know, if I'm being honest, I would say when people mentoring were becoming professors and I wasn't going down that path myself, I thought, oh, maybe it's time to, you know, look at something else. But actually, data science was super interesting and compelling, and just the cool things that people were doing even 4 years ago, just, you know, to me that seemed like where there's so much fun to be had, you know.
Oh, absolutely.
Cool innovations and, you know, things that you can put into practice, you know, within weeks or months. That was pretty compelling, instead of things where your experiment takes 10 years to build. So
right.
Oh my gosh, 10 years?
That's amazing.
That's crazy.
Yeah, data science has been such a growth field over the last few years as well, as everybody begins to realize that, oh, we have big data too.
Yeah, and just amazing tools and compute power. You know, every month there's some, or it seems like almost every month there's some new technique or tool out there to take advantage of. So very exciting.
Definitely. And Alex, if you don't mind, what drew you to work at Field Nation?
Well, you know, I read about them, and then I got interviewed by them. And for me, the people that I came in contact with, the culture, and just the tremendous opportunity, not only of the space, but at the company itself, you know, I got this sense that if I came up with an innovation, they would actually put it into use. It wouldn't just be the buzzword of, oh, innovation, but then never putting it into practice. So that's turned out to be true, and super happy to be here.
That's great. And before we go too much further, would you like to describe sort of Field Nation, what Field Nation does, maybe a little bit of the history of the company and that kind of thing?
Sure. So our business really is connecting businesses with skilled service providers to complete projects. We have, you know, about 300,000 service providers in our system. And our mission really is to break barriers to work. And that's the idea that our founder and CEO, Mainul Khan, had 10 years ago when he started the company. And now we are the leading marketplace for on-site, on-demand contract work. And we're also a trust leader in our market.
That's great.
our goal is to be the obvious choice. So, we want people to say, well, why would I go anywhere else?
Of course.
Absolutely. And could you provide an example, maybe?
Let's see, an example of.
You mentioned, sort of pairing up.
Well, maybe I'll jump into what the value proposition is for our clients, because really that's an example. Well, it is what
Sure.
we do. So
Great, yeah.
and then we can come to an example of how one would, use our services or use our platform. So, our value proposition to our client is that they can find high quality service providers to fulfill their jobs. And importantly for them, it's a scalable workforce. So if you're, let's say you're a small player in the, let's say Chicago area or somewhere else, and you want to bid on contracts or jobs that that are nationwide, you can rapidly scale and actually do those jobs without having to, recruit people in every geographical area of the country or in Canada. So that's a tremendous value proposition for them, that they can rapidly scale. So of course, using a marketplace, some people may be apprehensive. So a very important factor is trust. Can you trust these service providers that we're providing to you? And that's one thing that we've done a lot of work on, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And so, back in my retail days, we would have crews that would come in and redo carpet, let's say, in 1,000 stores, right? And so what you're saying is that might be the kind of job that might be accomplished. It could be anything, though, right?
Yeah, right now we are, we're expanding, but a lot of our work is more technical in nature. So an example of a job may be go to a Walmart or a Target and replace their point of sale system, or update software.
Wow.
Or perhaps you need some network cable run throughout your store. They can find people to do that on our platform.
I see. Yeah, we had that need too.
The other interesting thing about our platform is that the clients are not contractually bound. They don't have to sign a contract to use our platform. They just come up and start posting work. And likewise with our service providers. So I like to think that we have to earn our business every day.
Oh, so it really is built off of quality and trust then, realistically.
Yeah, definitely.
Wow.
And so my understanding is the marketplace is pretty large. I think I heard the number 300,000 qualified technicians across North America. Is that right?
That's right. And we do, I think this past year, we're getting close to 1 million work orders in a year. We're probably at about, well, maybe we're at about 750,000 for last year, but we're growing rapidly. So,
and this is where the big data comes in, right? So
exactly. So we've got 10 years of data, and that it's front loaded on the more recent data, which is nice when you're trying to to build artificial intelligence technologies with that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so you kind of hinted at it a few minutes ago, but could you share some information about, maybe start with sort of the problem you're trying to solve, maybe explain that a little bit so the listeners have a clear idea, and then how you're going about using data science to solve that problem.
Sure. So the first problem that we took on, which relates to quality, is let's say you're a client and you want to find work across the country, or find service providers across the country to fulfill your job. So One of the difficult things is that, they would have to sort through the histories of the service providers to find ones that they thought were going to do the job. I mean, we have very high quality overall on our platform, so we built out this new AI, which we call provider matching, which is a way to pair the optimal service provider to a given job. And so the way we do that is we have our 10 years of data, and we can use that data to train a predictive model so that it can recognize what makes a good pairing. And then we can create a kind of a rank of service providers for that job, and then make recommendations to our clients for that specific work. So it may include service providers who are close by or have lots of experience in that area. Maybe they're highly rated.
So your system has a feedback loop then too, because it sounds like there's a rating system also, right?
Correct. So we do have on both sides of the marketplace, the service providers can rate the clients and the clients can rate the service providers. So that is part of the information that we use for that predictive model. But perhaps more importantly, we can also look at the actual outcomes of work orders, if they went smoothly or not. There's many other pieces of data that go into it. The ratings are also part of that.
Wow.
And Alex, this is something that, so for an existing, let's say an existing contractor that you have lots of history on, right?
Mm-hmm.
That makes the data science easy because you have a bunch of existing data. What about the new, like if I were to go and sign up today, right? How do you handle kind of that cold start situation where you have a brand, you just don't have the data yet?
Yeah, so currently the data that we use is all internal to our platform. So we do have that cold start problem. We do have other means. In fact, we have some other products, internal products that are going to help get those first work orders. But we do need to take into account, we do consider even after one work order, we can make a prediction, but we have to temper that prediction by knowing what our uncertainty is on that prediction.
Oh, interesting.
A way to do that, that is, albeit a little bit crude, it works quite well and gives us good results.
And so is that something, do you mean that you share that uncertainty with whoever's browsing, or is that something that's just used sort of internally by the algorithm?
Well, it's really used internally in the background. And if you think about it, if you make a prediction, let's say you have a model that can predict a probability, that probability, let's say, is between 0 and 100%. Mm-hmm. If you've only based that on one work order versus 500, that one with one work order, you need to account for that. So what we do is we calculate a confidence, which includes both that probability and a measure of uncertainty. And then so that all goes into this matching algorithm. And then ultimately, it helps to create, when they're creating new relationships, a client wants to bring on people they haven't worked with, they have some basis to judge their quality. We do find that if they use our recommendations, they're more than 4 times more likely to have a positive outcome.
See, that's really cool.
That is just remarkable. Alex, I know Matthew asked about kind of the one side where you say, hey, I've got only a small subset of data, or a new contractor or a new kind of service provider. But on the flip side, let's say for those that have been around for a while, how much data do you really want to be able to make predictive models when you're going into this?
Yeah, we do we don't want to go back too far in time because, over time, the more recent data is certainly more valuable.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you do need a pretty large sample in order to train this predictive model. So fortunately, with 750,000 work orders per year, you can leverage that so that the model can figure out which pieces are important and which combinations of pieces of data are important to come up with, the ability to make a prediction for data that is new to the system.
Oh, sure.
Mm-hmm. And in the past, I've always heard more data is better. Is that accurate?
That is certainly accurate. Yeah, a lot of, depending on the models, but most of them are very data hungry. So, and one of the challenges that we face, or that I face when I'm trying to build these, is that a lot of our samples are very unbalanced. And on the one hand, it's a great thing because with this provider matching algorithm, the rate of our negative outcome is so tiny that you have a very small sample that actually have, the negative outcome that you're trying to prevent.
Sure.
And then over time, as your model gets better, you actually reduce that even further. So you're making your life even harder.
Yeah, you're actually making it harder to model again in the future.
When you say unbalanced, let's say just from a raw example, do you mean, let's say, you might have pockets of data in certain spots you don't have enough information because some of the stuff you're dealing with might be geography based? Is that right?
Well, most of this inputs to this algorithm really are not geography based.
Sure.
You're basically figuring out how to combine the pieces of data in an optimal way. So it isn't so much geography based. It does depend on the different types of work. So different types of work will have potentially different factors that are more important than others.
Okay.
We do account for that. Yep.
And so you've been taking all of this data and basically leveraging it to create cool new things for Field Nation. Do you want to share some of the exciting stuff you've got coming up next?
Yeah. As I said, this provider matching was sort of our first big launch into AI. And we have several other projects that we're working on right now that I'm very excited about. Some of them are in the experimentation phase. But one of them that I'm really excited about is trying to do real-time predictions around whether a given job is going to get fulfilled. And by fulfilled, I mean matched with a service provider. And if we can do this in real time, a buyer, or a client places work in our marketplace, and then if we can watch over time different events and activity on the platform and use that to say, well, this one looks like it may not be covered, so we can actually use that to drive taking corrective actions to make sure those jobs get fulfilled. It could include things like automation, automatically notifying service providers that might be eager to get new work. So that's one way we can.
So they don't have to go look for it. It'll come to them, sort of, hey, you might be interested in this.
Exactly.
Oh, that's cool.
Well, and I suppose, nope, sorry.
Oh, and so it does, provide great value to the service providers if we can point them to work that they would be a good match to.
Well, and I love this. I love this whole idea, Alex, because, it's it like reduces waste in the system, right? And I think that would, it'll benefit Field Nation, but it'll also benefit the whole ecosystem around Field Nation, I would think.
Yeah, I agree. And that's kind of the goal with all this stuff is to create value for both sides of our platform, for the service providers and the clients. So, we hope that we can help onboard new providers with this product, because that's, as you said, that cold start problem is definitely an issue with most marketplaces.
I think it's I've never seen it not be an issue with
Yeah.
adding new entities to a system that needs predictive.
Right.
What else? So that sounds great.
Yeah.
Do you have other things in the pipeline that you want to talk about?
Yeah. Well, pricing is always an interesting problem and interesting to everyone, really. So we're trying to come up with, we're working on some new ways to give pricing insights. And you really have to look at the whole picture of not just price, but what are you getting for that price? And, there's factors of coverage. If the price is too low, maybe no one will take that work order. And if we can inject quality insights into that mixture, I think we can, provide visibility to what you're getting, what the client is getting for their money, and also give visibility to service providers who do excellent work. Those who do the best work should be rewarded for that.
Mm-hmm.
So we're working on some algorithms that will give better pricing than we have currently, that will really get down to a more local level and even more granular in the type of work breakdown. So if I'm a service or a client, I get some idea of how to price a job, because
Mm-hmm.
if you're new to the platform, you don't have a really good idea of how you should price a given job.
Well, and this is not it. So it reminds me of real-time bidding, which coming out of the ad network space, is a popular concept there. This is not real-time bidding, but you're sort of, at least that's not what I'm understanding you saying. But you're sort of saying, hey, we can take a look at the pricing, and you can sort of understand that for this particular entity's, the historical data around that entity's performance and everything,
Mm-hmm.
they could demand a higher price, let's say, because maybe they've got all 5-star ratings or, something like that, right?
Yeah.
That right now it's difficult to even get visibility or think about without using sort of the data science approach. Is that right?
Yeah, and they would have to dig through records of that person's history, so
Yeah.
we can provide them that insight and save them work. And also, they may have different jobs that have different requirements. Like maybe one, they really want the very best person because the stakes are very high, or maybe a different one, they don't care quite as much. So the idea is that going forward, we can kind of let them make an informed decision, not just always going for the lowest price, but knowing what you're getting at each level. So this is it'll be an ongoing project with pieces of it being sort of built out and released. But there's this overall idea of really giving a complete picture, and that may take some time.
I really love this, Alex, and the reason I say that is I've seen other not yours, but other platforms, not like yours, but a little bit different, but where it always feels like it's almost a race to the bottom, and they really struggle to get that quality piece in there. I think it's just remarkable that you're bringing that back in there.
Yeah, and we want it to be, it has to be fair to both sides
Yep.
of the platform, because if it isn't, then if we lose all of our service providers, and it's not worth it to them.
100%.
If they're not getting, if it's not a good deal for them, they're not going to do it either. So really, visibility to what everyone's actually getting is, I think, very important.
Well, and to echo what Cliff just said, I also am very excited about this idea for the exact same reason. But, I think it's interesting because I would think it would benefit the Field Nation platform a lot to be able to reward great performance, even if it's not the lowest price, right? Because if I'm just thinking abstractly about, I use a platform and maybe I go for the lowest price and I have a bad result, right? I might use the platform again, go for the lowest price, and maybe I have a bad result that time too. I might not use the platform again, So being able to sort of have some way to inform or to present it in such a way that, I understand this company, this decision I'm making to pay more is because of the quality expectation, and to Cliff's point, to avoid the race to the bottom that happens on some marketplaces.
Yeah, I think the pricing, it should work itself out ideally to benefit, to kind of find the optimal for both sides. We do have a counteroffer mechanism on our platform. It's not real-time bidding like eBay, but there is a mechanism for that, and that does get used. So,
well, I really love the idea that if you are new, not so much new, but let's say you are new, and it's something you've never put out there, that potentially, if it ends up being this way or not, have suggestions. That would be great, because just where's the ballpark at to even do that, so you can start thinking budgeting and things like that.
Yeah, one of our potential uses of this that we're very much focused on, I shouldn't say potential, we want to move forward with something on this, is oftentimes our clients will bid on big projects. It could be nationwide, some of them are worldwide even. We would like to be able to give them insights on what they should bid at, because if maybe there's a job out in the middle of Montana where there aren't many service providers. Maybe they have to pay a little more for that one, but if they can adjust the overall picture, that could be a huge win for them and allow them to actually get more work, put it on our platform, and then we can give our service providers more work. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's great. Well, that sounds really exciting. Were there any others, Alex, that you wanted to talk through?
I think those are the main ones I wanted to cover. We're always, trying to think of new creative ways to deliver value to both sides of our platform. So there will be certainly things that come up, and we're very much experiment driven. So we actually, if we have an idea, we will put something together, use it for a small subset of our marketplace, and find out what works and what doesn't. And I think that is really a key part of how we're going to move quickly.
That's cool.
Great.
Yeah. So, we have a few questions for you, Alex, that aren't specific to Field Nation necessarily, but more related to data science in general and just your thoughts. Since we have you here, I was curious about your thoughts on kind of what are the challenges around data science, or what do you see them as?
I think some of those things that I discussed earlier with, in the context of provider matching, that unbalanced sample, for training, that's definitely an issue. And even with that project on increasing the fulfillment of work orders with the real-time insights, there again, oftentimes you're going to actually take action based on what that prediction is. So when you do that, now you've biased your sample, so you have to figure out how to work around that. Do you really want to, how much data do you really, how many users do you really want to withhold from getting that insight just so you can train your model again? So those are things that I struggle with. And, we're dealing with people, so people are not always predictable. They're surprisingly predictable, but not always. You can't catch every negative thing that could happen, but it's really rare.
Well, so Alex, what I hear you saying is like, if you take 100% of the data coming in order to really feed the continued training of the models, you have to set aside some data that you basically don't apply the decision making from the models to in order to keep that kind of pure, right?
That is, that would be the pure way to do it. I'm trying to think of ways that I can, maybe be creative and somehow account for that. But
you're trying to innovate is what you're doing.
Yeah, I haven't come up with, the answer yet. A lot of the beauty of data science is that everything is new all the time, and there's no well-defined solution. You have to invent it every day. That's kind of how I feel. And so if you just restrict yourself to what you find out on the web or what you read in newsletters, you may miss out on an opportunity to do something new that no one else has thought of.
That sounds pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's a really great field to be in. I'm very excited to be doing this.
Well, and besides some of the challenges, then, just on that note, what are some of the exciting parts of data science?
Well, there's some things coming out that I'm very excited about as far as the future of data science. Most predictive models right now, they give you one number. They give you a prediction. As I alluded to earlier, they really don't give you an uncertainty on that prediction. Most of them don't. And as a physicist, I was always drilled into my head. You don't just state a number. You state a number, and it's uncertainty. And so, if we're trying to get a confidence, we need both those numbers. So there's a big a lot of work going on around what's called probabilistic programming. And sort of a subset of that is what's called Bayesian inference, where one can actually get a prediction and an uncertainty. And another piece of that that's very exciting is that you can inject prior knowledge into the problem, which oftentimes we have, but we don't really have a nice, clean way to inject that into the model. So those are things that I'm really excited about and playing around with right now. And I kind of need to get a feel for computing needs and all that, because it is a little bit different than what I'm currently using.
So those are things you can do now. Is that what you're saying?
There are tools out there, and one can write your own pieces of that. So these are tools that are out there that I'm dabbling in a little bit, but
sure,
when I have time,
Totally. That sounds like a ton of fun.
Yeah, and right now I have ways that I get an uncertainty that's that does the job, and it works for what we're trying to do. But I would love to have a more rigorous way to do that.
That's interesting. Something pops into my mind here, Alex. For somebody who's listening and is brand new to data science, where would you point them to?
It's kind of a tough question because my background is pretty different, but I think thinking like a scientist is very important. That science part of data science. You gotta be able to just learn quickly and learn new programming languages, techniques, tools. But I think having that ability to think like a scientist, make a hypothesis, test it, I think that's really important and maybe not always called out as being as high value as I think it is. Of course, I have a biased viewpoint, so.
Yes. The data you're using has an inherent bias. All right. Well, Alex, I think that just about wraps up our questions for you. Do you have any other closing thoughts?
Yeah, I just, Field Nation, we are leading the way in using AI and data to get work done. And there's just a huge potential to create value for our clients and service providers. And I think Field Nation, we have the data and the talent to make that happen. So I would just say this provider matching that's out there now is really just the beginning, and that you should stay tuned for more AI and data innovations.
That sounds great, and maybe maybe we can have you back on the show later, and you can fill us in on where things are.
Sounds good. That'd be great.
Fantastic. So if folks are interested in learning more about Field Nation, where should they go?
You could start on our website, fieldnation.com, and we'll also supply you with some links to learn about some examples of people using it to do great things.
Fantastic. And we'll make sure that all of that gets into the show notes. So Alex, I just want to thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciated your time and insights into data science, and it sounds like you're doing some great stuff at Field Nation. So thank you so much.
Thanks a lot for inviting me, and great talking to you guys.
Thank you, Alex.
All right. Once again, thank you so much to Dr. Alex Smith from Field Nation for talking to us today about data science and all the cool work they're doing at Field Nation. That was a great interview, don't you think?
That was just an awesome interview. I'm so grateful that he took the time to go through that. So that was just wonderful.
Absolutely. Well, that just about wraps things up for today's show. If you have any feedback, shoot us a message at podcast@gearforgesoftware.com, or you can find us on Twitter at Gearforge IoT. Cliff, do you have anything fun planned for the weekend?
Well, as we said, it's going to be snowing pretty heavily here tomorrow. I think my son just let me know he's got a project that he needs to do, so I'll probably work on a project with my son most this weekend. And maybe, fingers crossed, we can get a little bit of Battlefront in.
That would be fantastic.
Awesome.
Zeineb, how about you?
I am defying the weather in ways I shouldn't be because I'm going to Mankato this weekend. Can't be that bad, right? I mean, the worst that can happen is me sleeping all day, which I would really appreciate. So, what about
for
you?
our listeners, Mankato is probably about 2.5 hours from your current location. So,
yep, and I believe that's the epicenter of the blizzard.
Yes, we've told Zeineb a whole bunch of stories about pioneers getting stuck and starving to death in the middle of blizzards. So, just trying to make everybody feel good.
I love Minnesota. I love Minnesota. What about you, Matthew?
Well, I mean, I'm probably going to spend the weekend snow blowing. But other than that, I'm not really sure yet. There are a bunch of things that I would like to spend some time taking a look at. So we'll see if I get around to any of those, and maybe some Battlefront. So that would be good.
That sounds really nice. It also sounds warm.
Yes, warm is good. Well, folks, thank you so much for listening, and we hope you'll join us again for next week's show. Until then, so long and be well. Bye, guys.
Bye.